cats and kittens, this is Lex and welcome to the Crochet Fiberist, where I talk about crochet and fiber in that approximate order. You can find me as Alexacom with a 3 instead of an E on Instagram, and I think it's regular Lexicom, Lexicom, on Ravelry if you're so inclined. So today has been yet another crazy, insane 2020. I mean, what can you say? Things are just going nuts. And that's all I have to say about that, because I want to talk about fiber. So let's talk about what I've completed. We'll talk about the fibering stuff I'm working on, and then we'll do a little digression into Polwarth. But first, I want to talk about Fiber-Ati. So for me, Fiber-Ati are fiberist knitters, crocheters, weavers, dyers, whoever who inspire me or give me food for thought. And this week, I couldn't have chosen a better person for to mention. My dear friend, Dr. Gemma. She is I think she's Gemma DW on Ravelry, and Dr. Gemma on Instagram. She is a incredibly accomplished woman. She has 2 doctorates, one in English and one in psychology. And she is just a hoot. I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, she was at the height of her fiberist experiences or fiberist sharing. She had a podcast. She had a fiber festival in a tiny town called Tehachapi. She was just this positive influence in the world of fiber, and she's wonderful. And I'm honored that she's a friend of mine. You can find her, like I said, Dr. Gemma on Instagram. She does a lot of Instagram lives. She's always showing beautiful things she's working on. She always has a really interesting challenge. I get the feeling that she likes to complete things. The completeness of a thing intrigues her, and I appreciate that so much. And also she makes beautiful things. So hats off to one of my favorite fiberists, Dr. Gemma. All right. Now, I was going to do a couple other folks, but I'll save them for another episode. Let's get into what I've completed. So we saw one of these we saw last week. The other one we did not. So let me show you the one we saw last week. So I started a wrap. I want to say 2 weeks ago? I don't know, something like that. And I didn't have an idea of what it was going to be. I just fell in love with this little pattern that I just started doing, and I was like, okay, I'll just repeat that, and then I'll have this giant scarf thing, and that'll be great. But as I got through the first skein, I was like, well, I have 4 skeins of this. Do I really want a 4 skein shawl? The answer to that is no. So I put my brain in a little blender and thought about what I wanted. The first option was a V-shaped shawl, like a Ruana kind of thing. And I liked the idea, but it still wasn't giving me that sense that that's what it wanted to be. And finally, I was working and I finally realized, oh my gosh, that'd be an interesting little poncho thing. Now, ponchos have been a thing in the fiber world for ages and ages, and I have some truly horrific pictures in several friends' cameras and their camera rolls of me in this garishly ugly green crocheted poncho that I would wear everywhere when I was in college. It was truly hideous. I learned a lot of things from it, but it was truly hideous. So I was like, if I'm going to do a poncho, I do not want it to look like that ever. So I looked at what's kind of cool right now, and then just, with a little thinking on my own, this is what I came up with. So as you see, the pattern starts here and works its way all the way around. I finished with just a Tunisian stitch, worked all the way down. So it's kind of obvious, but it works with it. It's obvious, but it works in pattern, so it's not really, really obvious in a way that's unpleasant. It's obvious in a way that is that marries the pattern. So here's what it looks like. It is definitely autumnal. It's definitely quite lovely. The yarn is 3 Irish Girls Springvale DK in Trickery. I have 2 more skeins of it, but I don't know what I'm going to do with those. I don't know. I may make another one of these as a gift. I don't know. I don't know. I'd like to use up all of the yarn. I'm trying to, well, we've talked about this. We'll get into this later, but I'm doing my stash down where I do a 10 skein campaign, and so this was part of that, and I really love how this looks. I will post a picture on Instagram of me wearing this, because the sweater I'm wearing now with this would be unbearably hot and unbearably uncomfortable. But yeah, here's my autumnal poncho-y wrap thingy. It doesn't really have a name yet. I don't know if I'm writing down the pattern. I'd like to think I would, because it's actually easy, unlike some of my other patterns. But yeah, it's great. I love it. It's a lot of fun. I wore it, what day did I wear it? I think I wore it Thursday when I went to work, and I was wearing all black and then just popped this on, and it added an air of sophistication. I felt very cool that day. So yeah. All right, let's talk about my second finished object. So I think I showed you the yarn for this. I went to a place called Fiber Circle Studio, and because I was on the lookout for this really cool yarn. It was a chunky, thick and thin alpaca blend, alpaca cotton blend, which fascinated me. I really, really do need to contact the person who made this yarn. But anyway, so I saw this really chunky, thick and thin, quirky yarn, and I just liked it. I liked the way it looked. I liked the way it made me feel. I liked just how pleasant it was. And so I brought it home, and I think I may have shown a picture, but I can't remember. And I started working on it, and then I got to the middle, and I was like, well, what am I going to do now? I had a plan to begin with, and as I'm sure you're starting to find out, I don't really follow plans. At least for my fiber, don't really. It's not a thing that happens. So here's what I ended up making. This is a little past arm length, or the width of my arms. So it's a perfect little scarf for cooler evenings. I think this will be great when I'm doing my biking now that the air is not made of poison and we can actually go outside on the regular again. What I really, really love is the patterning. I don't know how well you could see it because it's only kind of in the middle. Maybe it's easier to see it this way. These little heart stitches. I'll have to do a picture of this too. I think I'm going to start photographing my finished objects and popping them on Instagram. I never seem to get around to Ravelry, so I guess Instagram is the place to be. But yeah, this is great. I love it. It's cute. It's wonderful. I have 2 more skeins of this yarn, and I was thinking about making another set of these, but we'll have to see. The weather will tell me what those yarns want to be, because I had an idea of maybe like a chunky popover thing, but I'm not sure if I have enough yarn, and there's no more of that colorway, so I'm gonna have to be strategic. But anyway, this is really fun. I guess I could put this technically in the Empower People scarves list, because purple is the dominant color. But this one's definitely for me. I'm not giving this one to anyone. So here we go. I love this really fun ridgy stitch. It's called the Tunisian column stitch. It's one of my rediscovered stitches. Really simple. Once you see it, once you work a Tunisian column stitch, you will be like, why has no one ever thought of this before? And I would tell you that somebody probably has. They just didn't write it down, or I haven't found it yet. I mean, I'm not the be-all end-all of Tunisian crochet or anything, but, you know, new ideas are coming out all the time. So that's my second finished object. Now let's talk about what's in work. The minute I finished the autumn wrap, I thought, ooh, I need another one, but here are my parameters. I didn't want a variegated yarn. I mean, I love this for that, and honestly, I could have gone a lot simpler with the pattern for that because of the clash of the colors, which I think are beautiful, but it may not be everybody's cup of tea, and it doesn't go with everything in my wardrobe. So I wanted something that was tonal, and I wanted something a color that was more amenable to my personal tastes. Autumn colors are beautiful, and I love how they look on my skin. Oddly enough, though, I don't wear a whole lot of autumn colors. I really, really love like cool blues and greens. Now, blues look great on me. I'm just going to let you know. Blues look fantastic on me. And so, in the spirit of that, I elected to begin another autumnal wrap. Is this tied up? Yeah, no. I got to the end of the row. So I started another one of these autumnal wraps. Here we go. I don't know how well you can see it. Yeah, check it out. So I started this, I'm like, what, 5 rows in? So I've got a while to go. And I'm liking it. The color is very, very different from the other one, so I don't know if it's going to work up as quickly. My favorite part of working on the autumnal wrap is that it was I was wondering how the colors were going to play together. This one is pretty much just this very pretty blue. What is this, slate and blue? It's a little more blue than slate, but it's definitely on that spectrum. Let's see. The yarn itself, the stuff, is, I have 2 skeins of it, and it is from, please tell me I have it on me. Come on, guys. Darn it. I know the minute I close, ugh, I hate that. I bet the minute I turn off my camera, I'm going to find it. But it is Arkaik Fibres. That is ARKAIK Fibres in the English spelling. And this yarn is 100% Polwarth. And the colorway is Jodie. And this is Lore DK. That's the name of the yarn. It's 245 yards per 100 grams. So there's quite a bit of yarn. This isn't as much yarn as I had for the Springvale. The Springvale was 270 yards per 100 grams. So this is definitely more on the, this is a more substantial DK than the 3 Irish Girls Springdale. It's a little crunchier. It's not as buttery soft, but I think it's going to wear a lot better. And as it gets chillier, that's the kind of thing that I'd wear pretty regularly. So it's important to me that it would last. And I think with Polwarth, it will definitely last. I will link everything or put everything in the show notes, the yarns and where you can find them. So that is my first, I think that is my first work in progress. Let's see. Okay, my second work of progress is something that happens every year around October. So it's a little early this year, but it happens every year. And here's how it goes. I get excited about socks. I see Instagram is flooded with socks because it's starting to get chilly. People are breaking out their socks. Hello. And I think, oh my gosh, this is going to be the year I do socks. So every year, without fail, I either acquire some knitting needles, sock needles, or I buy a sock needle set. Something like that. Not doing that this year, but that's what it typically happens. And I buy some yarn and I appropriate some sock yarn, normally of the, Lion Brands or big box store, wherever, whatever I can find at a big box store, because I want to practice and get good, and then I can use my sock yarn. And then I sit down with a craftsy class and try to work through a sock. And I lose interest in that about an hour into the process. It happens every year, every single year. I elected, and then I end up, here's what ends up happening. I end up using Tunisian crochet, and I create these little slipper socks that are really great for the mornings and stuff, but they're not really useful in my shoes. They're just not. And I kept thinking to myself, you're probably just going to have to break down and knit socks. And I'm probably going to have to do that eventually. But right now I'm having fun working and exploring Tunisian crochet socks, and here's what I have so far. As you can see, this is kind of like a wedgie toe, and what is this? Something in gusset. I don't know. It's a gusseted sock, and I'm working on the leg right now. I have to tell you, and people have told me this for years, and I didn't really believe them, and I don't know why I didn't. The best way to get into socks or to keep yourself interested in socks is buy a fun self-striping yarn, and I did. This is a lot of fun. This is a Mani-pedi from Lion Brand yarns, and the colorway I believe is Crew, and it's just a fun rainbow. So I totally dig that. That's how far I've got. Yes, it fits over my feet. It fits pretty nicely. I'm experimenting with a stitch that will help make my leg stretchy but stay up. And as I figure out the likelihood of this working, I have there are some techniques that I came across and I find really interesting, and I'm incorporating. One of them is the column stitch right here that goes all the way up the sock, and for me that helps divide the front and the back, and there's a column on each side so I can keep track of what's going on each side. And so I started writing up the pattern, but it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm particularly proud of the toe. It was done in a really interesting manner, and if I ever have time in a swatch party, I may show you my technique for that. And yes, it's all in the round. It just is. You could probably get away with not doing that, but for me, I'm like, what's the point if I can't? So yes, it's a little thicker, but it is a squishy, yummy, delicious sock, and I'm madly in love. The hook I used, is right here. I don't know how, if you can see that. Yeah. This is a 2.5 fixed Tunisian circular. I picked these up. There's a company called KA Japan, and that's Kinki Amabari. And they have a division called, I think, CNET or something. And they have a bunch of these fixed Tunisian hooks in really small millimeters. I think the 2.5 is as small as you can go. I picked these up at Loop London because they were the only place I could find that I could purchase them. I think I bought like 4 or 5 of these. So I have this in 2.5, I have it in 2.7, I think I have a couple in 3.25. And that's just helping me explore fabrics in smaller hook sizes that you don't see in anywhere else. I really hope that Tunisian crochet is experiencing a permanent positive boom, so I can start seeing smaller denomination hooks in different configurations. I would love to see that in an interchangeable set. I have not seen a 2.5 in an interchangeable set. I think the smallest I've found is a 3.0, and I think that was one of the Knitter's Pride. Yeah, Knitter's Pride, I think, is in their bamboo hooks, which are excellent, by the way. If you want an interchangeable Tunisian crochet set, I would go with that, or I would go with Denise interchangeables, because they're very affordable and they're plastic, and yeah, they're wonderful. I'll talk about that in another day. But suffice to say, super tiny Tunisian hook, sock one, and because I knew, of course, that I would get second sock syndrome, I started the toe for sock 2. I think this has about 15 more rows before I start with the something in gusset. What is it? I forgot what it was. It was a X in gusset, but whatever. I adapted a technique that I saw from Donna Drew Canis, who has a Craftsy class on toe-up socks, and I just incorporated I had to use different techniques to achieve the same idea, and it turned out in a way that I'm pretty proud of. So these are living in my ink bags, which I love. I think these are really cute bags. Between these and the Madder Root bags, they're some of my favorites. Okay, one more project. All right, it is sweater weather is fast approaching, and I would like my final cardigan to be ready sometime in a perfect world by the end of the month. Realistically, probably early next month. So I am making a Maille sweater. I think episode 2 or I think it was either 3 or 5, I showed you a gray cardigan that I made out of Feels Like Butter, Lion Brand, and that's just a polyester, and I liked it a lot, and I figured it'd be really great in a natural fiber. So here we are. We're still in the back. Yeah, it looks a little Trust me, washing and blocking will cure this beast, but you can see I'm working down the back. It's going kind of slow because I don't work on it all the time. The socks kind of captured me, and then the autumnal wrap finished the job. So my goal is to get another one skein of this done. Here's the yarn. It is Plucky Knitter's Yakpaca Going Gray. I have 4 skeins of it. I also have 1 skein in Beatnik, which is the pure black, and I'm trying to decide if I'm going to put stripes in or not. We'll see. The hook is a Chow Goo I 5.5. I think what I love about Chaogu is that they engrave the number of the hook onto the hook. I really love that. Some of the other yarn creators don't do that. They just type it on, and if you're using a hook a lot, it's really easy for that to smudge off. Or if you're using a yarn that gets dye on your hook, well, maybe that should inform the hook you choose. But I find that sometimes that smears off the number or the information that you need. One thing I've started to do with those smaller Tunisian hooks you saw is put a clear coat of polish over the size of the hook and let it dry for a while, and then it's going to be a lot harder for it to smear off. I got that from someone. I don't remember who I got it from, but I think that's a great idea. So yeah, they're all living in my Zucca bag, and it's a great commute project once I get back to it. So with my finished objects, I have completed my second tin skein campaign, and I'm working on the third campaign, and I have a couple of yarns that will be going into that. You'll see that as it comes up. But yeah, I finally finished my second campaign of tin skein campaign. And so, did I pick up anything in celebration for that? I can't remember. Yeah, I did. Never mind. I did. So it's on to another tin skeins. I think the sweater, I think the socks, I think that other wrap will put me in like 6 skeins in, so, or 6 to 10 skeins in. So I could be theoretically done with that pretty quickly, but we'll see. All right, let's do a little fiber digression. I wanted to talk about a yarn that is going to be featuring prominently in my fiber life, just because I have a lot of it and I really love working with it. So, Polwarth. Oh yeah, no, sorry, I was like, why am I talking about Polwarth? What's the context? The context is, remember my blue autumnal wrap. It's made of 100% Polwarth. I think it may be New Zealand Polwarth, which is where it came about, and thus I think New Zealand was where it came about. Anyway, New Zealand has really good Polwarth because New Zealand has really good merino. The interesting thing about Polwarth, as I'm sure a lot of you know, is that it's a blend. Its origins come from 3/4 merino, 1/4 Lincoln. So I don't know if you know Lincoln long wools. They are a very coarse and substantial fiber. Mix that with merino and you've got a very strong fiber that still has super softness. It's not going to be merino soft, but it's definitely should be able to put it close to skin. It's pretty incredible. When I was looking through my fiber stash, because I was like, ooh, maybe I can show you guys some fiber, I found that most of them are blends. I do know that on Etsy, there are people selling organic Polwarth, and should I sit down and work, do some more spinning, I will definitely invest in some Polwarth eventually. But it's yummy. It's got this texture that's between merino and, tarhi, which is a lot more substantial and a lot, I hate to use the word coarse, like it's not coarse, but it feels like hair. It's closer to the hair feel. And merino is just like this fluffy, crimpy fiber. It's an interesting it's interesting that it falls kind of right in the middle of that. Cormo falls in the middle of that, to a different degree. There are a lot of different blends. I don't want to call that a blend because it's Polwarth is technically a sheep breed, but different merino crosses, you can kind of feel the similarity. So it's a really great option. It tends to be harder to find commercially. I do know Outlaw Yarn has Bohemia, which is a Polwarth mix. It's Bohemia, I think it comes in a sport weight and a worsted. It's 45% alpaca, 45% Polwarth, and 10% possum. So it's a very, that yarn is very luxurious and very cozy. I like that a lot. The Polwarth definitely gives it some strength and softness, and of course the alpaca, you know, gives it what alpaca gives. Let's see. So while I didn't find a lot of commercial iterations, I know some indie dyers, and you guys, I just found the Arkaik Fibres. That's the Arkaik Fibres in the Lore DK and Jodie. I picked this up. It's made, it's hand dyed in merino, so that's cool. It's kind of a Locavore-ish yarn, and I picked it up at the Black Squirrel yarn shop, and I will link her in the description below. So, yeah. Sorry. So this is an indie option. That's the option I'm using for my wrap. And I have two other options if you're so inclined. And it's an embarrassment of riches. There are quite a few indie dyers who are in my vicinity, and I like to support them. So these two represent two of my favorites. The first is from the Dye Project. I think they're rebranding to Sea Change Fibers, but I'm not sure. I will definitely link their website in the description. But here it is. And it's called Soquel DK. Soquel is a street in Santa Cruz, and that's where the dyer is based. I don't know if Soquel refers to anything else, but I know for a fact that, in fact, the yarn shop that I purchased my first batch of this from is, I think, on Soquel, or like on the cross street of Soquel or something like that. But anyway, her Soquel DK is a 8515 Polwarth mix, 250 grams, so about 8 ounces or more, 725 yards. And this is a delicious colorway. I think this is tarnished silver. It's gorgeous. I love it. I haven't figured out what I'm going to do with it, but I love it. And my second option for you, there are many, many other options. I believe Blue Moon Fiber Arts has, I think Silky Victoria is a Polwarth silk blend, if my memory serves. But here's one I have a special love for. This Fiberist is here in California, probably a couple hours north, probably more. It's hard. California is weird. Like, you could drive probably for a full day to get through California. It's a lot. But anyway, this dyer, super sweet. I try to visit her booth every time she's at Stitches, and I think this is the second or third sweater quantity of yarn I've bought from her. This is Lisa Souza, who is fantastic and just a dear. And she has a Polwarth silk. It's 85 Polwarth, 15 silk, 4.8 ounces for 400 yards. It is gorgeous. I got the St. Louis blues, which is like the perfect blue for little old me. I got a sweater quantity, so I will be doing some serious fibering this fall. on a sweater with this. So I'm super, super excited. Those are the skeins. I highly urge you, if you haven't worked with Polwarth, to really get your hands on some, because it is glorious. It's a lot easier to spin than merino if you're a new spinner. I would rank it comparable to a Corriedale. And the thing about Polwarth is you can keep it fluffy and soft. Corriedale is probably better for like sock yarns and things like that, a finer spin. But Polwarth, you could get a really great first yarn or first couple yarns and make items that are really memorable and gorgeous and soft. So on that happy note, I think we've talked about everything, which is fantastic. And we are within our time limit. So I just want to say thank you for coming back. Thank you for joining me. And I hope to see you next week. Hagan.